Hey there, welcome to, let's see, to my, welcome to my Bad Examples, Ralph Covert Staycation show, highlighting the Meet album, Meet the Bad Examples, the first Bad Examples record, and some stories and stuff about that. So the Bad Examples formed in 1987. I had been working on putting together a band. I'd worked with a producer named Scott Novak, and he and I had done a number of demos and done some studio stuff. It gave me a chance to kind of learn some of the basics about how a band worked, and so one of the first songs that we did that really is part of the Bad Examples catalog actually was not on Meet, but it is a classic Bad Example song, and that's Statue by the Phone. We did one of the first things we did together was a demo with kind of an 80s, very classic 80s drum machine, and Scott played the guitar part on it, and I sang it. It was our first chance to kind of like start working out what this sound was that I had in my head that he was helping me discover. So I thought I'd start with that. The song kind of predates the Bad Examples, but also kind of sets the table for what's to come as we go through the Meet album and the early days of the Bad Examples. So. I stayed home waiting. Sunday I thought she might call. I don't go out, don't go nowhere. I'm like a statue by my telephone. Maybe she's looking for my number. Looking for it everywhere. She could break this spell I'm under. I could come to life if I knew she cared. Yeah, I don't go out, I don't go nowhere. I'm like a statue by my telephone. Stay at home, don't do nothing. I keep on thinking she might call, like a statue by my phone. Sunday night, feeling lonely. Feel my heart as it turns to stone. She could be my one and only. All I ever hear is my dial tone. Yeah, I don't go out, I don't go nowhere. I'm like a statue by my telephone. Stay at home, don't do nothing. I keep on thinking she might call, like a statue by my phone. Sunday night, feeling lonely. As it turns to stone. She could be my one and only. All I ever hear is my dial tone. I stay at home, I don't do nothing. I keep on thinking she might call, like a statue by my phone. I keep on thinking she might call, I'm like a statue by my phone. I keep on thinking she might call. I keep on thinking she might call. I keep on thinking she might call. I'm like a statue by my phone. So Scott and I were working on exploring what it meant to, he was teaching me a lot of musicians in the band played with each other, how the bass interacted with the drums. He had a lot of experience playing in live bands, playing in cover bands, and as a kind of a hotshot lead guitar player. And so he had a really good understanding of the ways the pieces of a band fit together musically. And so he was teaching me that. And then together we were on a journey to explore how things fit together sonically. We did a lot of listening to records and really analyzing how the drums and the bass and the guitars and the vocals and the keyboards and the other instruments all fit into the harmonic picture of how an album, how a recording comes together and makes sense arrangement-wise and recording-wise. And it's no coincidence that that Scott has spent the last 20 years down in Arizona teaching recording science and teaching people how to be engineers and producers, because he's brilliant at that. And we learned so much from working with each other. One of my podcasts is an interview with him recently where he was visiting Chicago, and we talked about our journey. And I'll put a link to that on my Facebook page and on my ralphcovert.com page. The other couple songs that Scott and I recorded that kind of guided me to the place where I put the Bad Examples together were the original version of Bad Girl, which ironically features Tom O'Brien, who later was in the Bad Examples, but was not in the Bad Examples at that time. Scott and I had gone around Chicago watching dozens and dozens of bands because we wanted to kind of figure out who we wanted to have in the studio to play the different instruments. We weren't looking for a guitar player when we saw Tommy. We were looking for drums and bass because Scott was a great guitar player. But we both saw him and were like, that guy plays lead guitar. That guy is a keeper. And I got lucky to years after that to actually get to keep him. Scott and I worked together. Another guy that was very instrumental in the early days of putting the Bad Examples together, that's not really recognized in any of the literature, is a guy named Jim Nelson. Jim was a great bass player, and he was busy with a lot of projects and was not really able to do a starting out band with me. I was like mid-20s. He was mid-30s, which in that era was like he was an older, established musician, right? But he was not able to join up with me. But what he did that was really generous and very helpful was he served as my bass player as I auditioned different drummers. So I needed to find, with a bass player and a drummer, you can't have one without the other. And Jim was so solid, he allowed me to go through lots of different drummers. And then he actually led me to Terry Wathen, who was the original Bad Examples drummer. Terry had drummed with Jim. And Jim was like, I'd had a bunch of guys in, and Jim was like, there's this young kid I know. He's kind of your age, a couple years older, but he's really great. Let's try him out. I'm like, sure. And Jim and Terry and I played together. And boom, I was completely sold on Terry. And Jim said, okay, I got to get back to work with my stuff. You need to find a bass player now. You've got a drummer. So shortly after that, Greg Bach was in a band called The Service, kind of a DeKalb-based band, kind of maybe the Rolling Stones meet the Replacements sort of a vibe. And Greg left the band, and he and I had met, and I asked him to audition. The three of us played together, and there we had the first lineup of the Bad Examples. Here's the Bad Examples record cover. It's Greg in the middle. Sorry for the shiny light there. That's a little better there. So and we were naked indeed. It was you know, we were young and fun. And the title of the Meat album, before we start rocking into playing it, was a pun based on the first Beatles album. I'll tell you that story after I play the first song here. Give me some music. So, first song on the album was "Reaching for Shadows," and I'll tell you about the cover and the title, and I'll tell you about the recording process as we go between songs. I keep on looking where you were sleeping. I see the imprint of your body on the sheet. I keep on hiding, thinking you found me. I give you nothing and you give me borrowed time. Feels like I'm reaching for shadows. Looks like I'm holding on to water again. Every time I think I figured out what we're after, I'm reaching for shadows. We say we're honest, but what do we know? We tell ourselves so many lies we think are true, and it's no secret we're more than just friends, but we're so much less than we ever really knew. Feels like I'm reaching for shadows. Looks like I'm holding on to water again. Every time I think I figured out what we're after, I'm reaching for shadows. We put a label on it just so we won't talk about it. Two masters of deception, seeing all but not each other. And I believe it's time to stop pretending we're a pair of shadows. Shadows. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I keep on feeling where you're not touching. I'm tired of dancing with the shadow on the wall. And if we're terrified of being lonely, why do we struggle so hard to remain alone? Feels like I'm reaching for shadows. Looks like I'm holding on to water again. Every time I think I figured out what we're after, I'm reaching for shadows. Reaching for shadows. Reaching for shadows. So the title of the album was a pun off of the title of the Beatles' first album, Meet the Beatles. Only in the case of the Beatles album, it was M-E-E-T, Meet, as in introducing you to the Beatles. And so we had this session. My friend Harrison Jones was a good friend of mine and a very, very talented photographer. And so he allowed me, he was generous enough to get me together with the band and shoot these pictures. And you know, we're shooting a lot of shots. We're trying stuff. How can you do some funny stuff? Like we did there's some different funny shots in it, like one where we're falling off a stool and we're trying different things. We're trying to like, how can we make it just not your basic boring band standing around picture? And at some point, somebody suggested, it might have been Greg, it might have been me, I don't really don't remember. Greg, probably what happened with the band dynamics, Greg probably said it as a joke, and I said, yeah, let's. And then Terry's like, no. And Greg's like, what? Seriously? And I said, hell yeah. And Harrison's like, lighting's good, let's go. And we took off our clothes and shot the pictures with, blocking the naughty bits with our instruments and other things from around, as a pun off of the Beatles' first album. Now, when we recorded it, I'll tell you that story again in a minute. I do the next song on the album, This Is Me, and both Reaching for Shadows and This Is Me were songs that we intended to record when we went in to record. And I'll tell you that story in a minute. Well, do you believe what you're saying? Are they angry words? Remember, goodbye is a long time, longer than forever, or I love you. And you look at me like I'm a stranger. This is me. Do you remember who you're talking to? This is me. But who are you? I sat in your car and I listened to all your angry words. Something inside must have broken, 'cause all your words were in another language. And you looked at me like I'm a stranger. This is me. Do you remember who you're talking to? This is me. Who are you? Bit by bit the pieces fell together. Day by day the problems were getting better. Then you laugh and say, I'll have to forget you. If this was a joke, I'd be laughing. It seems so impossible, 'cause when I wake up in the morning, I wake up alone, still not understanding how you looked at me like I'm a stranger. 'Cause this is me. Do I remind you of anybody? This is me. Who are you? This is me. Do you remember who you're talking to? This is me. Who are you? So Greg and Terry and I started playing together and rehearsing. And a couple weeks after that, I came into rehearsal very excited one night. I said, guys, I've got great news. I've booked a gig. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. What are the details? I said, well, and you have to remember at this point we had about probably a dozen or so, maybe a baker's dozen of original songs that we'd worked up, which is pretty productive, I would say, for a band that was 2 or 3 weeks old. We already had, because I had the songs written, just a question of, giving the tapes to Greg and Terry and learning them and figuring out, there was just a 3-piece, so the arrangements were fairly simple, kind of banging away at them. I said, yeah, it's a great gig. 3 one-hour sets of music on a weekend. And they're like, we don't have 3 hours of music. I'm like, I know. But what we're gonna do, we'll work up a bunch of covers. And that's what we did. We worked up, probably 15 really bad cover songs. Not bad, the songs weren't bad, but we were not like playing them, we were just banging them out. Like songs like Warren Zevon's Lawyers, Guns, and Money, I went home with a waitress, the way I always do. How was I to know she songs like that played about that subtly, or Alice Cooper, I'm 18. Lights fall on my face and hands. Lights fall from the ups and downs. I'm in the middle of life. I'm a boy and I'm a man. Oh, I'm 18. You know, real rocket scientist type songs. But you know, what we did is we actually wrote out the sets and we played all of our original songs at least 2 times, some of them 3 times, and then kind of filled in with these cover songs in this nasty little bar called the Hidden Cove. Bar ran down one side, pool tables down the other side, a path down the middle to the bathrooms, and in the back by the bathrooms, us playing by the jukebox with Terry's little PA and drums and bass and blaring it out. We made $200. We made $200, and we took the money from that and from they booked us back. Right, we're all right. We're in business now. We took that money plus the money from the upcoming gigs they had, and we went into Short Order Recorder, which was the very famous Chicago pop band Shoes had the studio up in Zion, Illinois. So we went up there, and our only goal, we were not making an album. We were recording a demo that we could share with clubs to get more bookings. And I mean, literally we took the money from the gig and took it to get the demo to get more gigs. We didn't, all of us were like struggling to pay the rent. We were like, young 20s, early 20s, and not in a good way financially. But Terry and Greg were both willing to put all their money from the shows into building the band. And our goal is to get 4 songs. Reaching for Shadows and This Is Me were 2 of those. And we banged through, we got the 4 songs done real quick. We had extra time, and there's a jam that we've been working on in rehearsal, and we just jammed it at the studio, and it went down so well and so smoothly that I then had to go into the control room and quickly actually write the words for the song, like on the spot. So, if we weren't planning on doing it that day, the song was not written when we showed up. What would the neighbors say if they could take the walls away? See you naked with a whip in your hand. What would your friends all do if they could look inside of you? See your pretty face conceals a beast within. Don't make a bed unless you're sure you can cover it. Don't lie to fight if you're afraid of what you burn. Got a way of making money vanish overnight. It doesn't scare me, it's an entertaining scale. What would the neighbors say if they could take the walls away? See you naked with a whip in your hand. What would your friends all do if they could look inside of you? See your pretty face conceals a beast within. Don't count your money if you're gonna spend all of it. Don't hunt for happiness, you're afraid to make a kill. You've got that pretty ring you wear up on your finger, that left you sharing scars on the backs of many, 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 many men. What would the neighbors say if they could take the walls away? See you naked with a whip in your hand. What would your friends all do if they could look inside of you? See your pretty face conceals a beast within. Beast within. And that song really kind of, especially that recording on the Meat album, really captures. Greg was a very aggressive driving bass player. He was when I look back historically, very different stylistically than Pickles. Greg had this massive cabinet, and he like put this thunderous low end through, and he sent this distorted high end through, almost more like a John Entwistle kind of bass player, but with kind of a punk sensibility. And so it really created a driving, powerful sound. And I've been recently digging into the archive of recordings we've got and listening to some early live recordings and rehearsal recordings of the band from that era. And I'm so excited to share a lot of those things with you. I think I'll do it through my patreon.com Ralph Covert site, patreon.com/Ralph Covert site. We'll put some stuff up there, and we'll share it, and probably some stuff here on YouTube as well. Just that band had a real energy from the very beginning. As you can hear we recorded the Meat album literally probably 6 weeks after we put the band together. It was very, very, very early in the life of the band. It's a great snapshot of where we started. Over My Shoulder actually is one of the songs that predates. So what happened? We did 4 songs. We went in for 4. We got 5. And I started thinking, so we did like one session for like 5-6 hours, and then came back for like a 2-3 hour session to kind of wrap up and mix and finish it. And I started thinking, so I had these 5 songs, and I'm like, that's almost, and I had done Bad Girl, and this next song I'm gonna play for you, Over My Shoulder, I had done with Scott Novak. And I'm like, that's 7 songs. And I had some odd length cassettes that Michael Freeman, ironically, who later produced Bad is Beautiful, had sold me from his tape duplication business. And I'm like, those songs would kind of fit, but they were a little bit short on the side too. So I'm like, I quickly wrote the song Goodbye that you'll hear when we end it for 2 reasons. One, because it balanced out, it was long enough to fit the amount of tape I had to duplicate onto and make the 2 sides equal length. And 2, I thought 8 songs was a nice, 8 songs felt like a miniature album. And that first show at the Hidden Cove had gone so well, I was like, maybe I could sell some people, the people seem to like it, maybe they'll buy a cassette. So we went back in for our little second session and mixed all the songs, and then I also recorded Goodbye that I'll play. And then I added Over My Shoulder and Bad Girl from the earlier stuff I'd done with Scott Novak, and all of a sudden I had an 8-song collection. So let me play Over My Shoulder and Bad Girl, and we'll talk about how the Meat album turned into a thing. I'll wait by my pillow for your footsteps echoing up to my door, afraid that you'll think I was waiting. I get up and I lock the door. I get up and I lock the door. Waiting for summer, but winter keeps on whispering in my ear. I say I don't love you, but sometimes I wish that you were here. And I got a feeling our love is over, but I keep on looking over my shoulder. My stereo calls me, but all of the records have been played before. Dreaming of loving you, waking, and I don't love you anymore. I got a feeling our love is over. I keep on looking over my shoulder. I wake in the darkness, but the footsteps are in my imagination. My TV's white hissing has replaced all my midnight animation. I got a feeling our love is over, but I keep on looking over my shoulder. I keep on looking over my shoulder. I got a feeling our love is over, but I keep on looking over my shoulder. So I'd recorded that with Scott Novak prior to even putting the Bad Examples together, but I had it laying around. I had this nice recording of it, piano and vocal, and so that can fit in. And then of course I had Bad Girl. I had a full band version of that. Now the version of Bad Girl that's on Meat is interesting because the only member of the Bad Examples that plays on Bad Girl is Tommy O'Brien. But at the time, Tommy O'Brien was not a member of the Bad Examples. The drummer, some of you probably will know from Chicago music, was Ed Breckenfeld, who later was the drummer for the Insiders. So Ed Breckenfeld from the Insiders played, technically, recorded with the Bad Examples. Was on a Bad Examples album before he was on an Insiders record, which is a nice, another twist in the kind of history of it. And again, I had this nice recording, and I was just trying to, we recorded the stuff as a demo, but I'm like, I can put this together in a little package, which I did. And I added those 3 songs, Over My Shoulder, Bad Girl, and Goodbye. And all of a sudden, we had something that passed for an album. I want a bad girl, someone with dark rings under her eyes. I want a bad girl, someone that can't take me by surprise. Talk about their sinners and their saints. Some folks are, what other folks ain't. I want a bad girl. Why bring a good girl to shame? I want a dancer, someone I can move to a song. I want a fast girl, other people fools. I want a bad girl. Nice girls only make me cruel. Maybe it's something in my style of living. Well, maybe it's something in my frame of mind. Maybe it's something in the things I'm used to giving, but I don't mind. I don't mind you sleeping with another guy. I'm sleeping with another girl. I'm not gonna stop. I want a bad girl. I want a bad girl. A very, 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 very bad girl. People talk about the rules of the game. Some folks watch while other people play. I want a bad girl. Why bring a good girl to shame? I don't mind you staying out all night long. I don't mind you drink until you drop. I don't mind you sleeping with another guy. I'm sleeping with another girl. I'm not gonna stop. I don't mind you staying out all night long. I don't mind you drink until you drop. I don't mind you sleeping with another guy. I'm sleeping with another girl. I'm not gonna stop. I want a bad girl. So I duplicated the tapes at home. I had a dubbing deck, so I actually physically handmade the cassettes. I printed out the labels and I might have even handwritten. No, I must have printed the labels. I printed at Kinko's the J card. So I printed the covers at Kinko's, and probably the cassette labels as well, I'm thinking. And I hand duplicated the cassettes, and I made like 50 of these things. And I wasn't really planning on it being, an album per se, and that it was going to last and be like an actual thing that would last till, right? Basically, the moment 33 years later, here we are still talking about it. That was not in my business plan for this. This was a cassette. I was making a few bucks selling the new songs to people because they liked the stuff. Our first show, I think we made like $75 off of the cassettes. So that was 25. We sold half our cassettes, right? I'm like, cool, man, right on. $200 from the club and another 75 from the cassettes. We're like, okay, we've almost paid for this. This is good. And what I did, because I was to make sure I got people's attention with the cassettes, and this might have actually, I was every cassette tape, I scotch taped a condom to it. This was the late 80s, so this was before condoms were even talked about in polite company. And there were no condom machines in bathrooms, and it was one of those things that you just didn't talk about it. I mean, if you were smart, you used one, but the girl was as like as not to give you a funny look if you pulled it out, because you pulled out a condom, she'd be like, oh, so you were getting ideas? You brought I don't know now. It was like not treated the way it was once the AIDS epidemic really changed how people thought about condoms. So it was not a thing back then. So for me to tape a condom on every cassette tape was very scandalous. It was very risque. And as it turned out, and I didn't really think this through, but it worked out pretty well, it was also very practical, because I will absolutely say for that first couple hundred copies of Meat, because I made the first 50 and they sold out, and I said, well, I got to make some more. For the first couple hundred copies of Meat that I taped the condoms to, before I got secure enough in the album to sell it without the condom. Beginning of the night, I'd be selling a cassette tape with a condom attached. And by the end of the night, without question, in many cases, I was selling a condom with a cassette tape attached. I'm sure some of those early copies of Meat were thrown in the floor of the back seat along with the wrapper of the condom. But I got my money. Big $5 I was asking too. I was really pushing hard for, demanding a lot. So here's probably the most obscure song on the Meat album. It was a real popular one back in the day. And I think they're really great songs to really, it's interesting. I wrote it about, the song is Swallowing Fire. And I wrote it about my sense of urgency and passion about making music and rock and roll and what it meant to me. And it's interesting because over the years, I have had countless number of people struggling with addiction issues, be it alcoholism or drug addiction or sex addiction, all come up and tell me that this song became a theme song for them as they worked through their addiction. So I guess I'm addicted to rock and roll or something. I'm not sure, but it certainly resonated with a lot of people. And again, so it's probably the most obscure song on the album. I'm thrilled to get to play it. I'm not going to tape a condom to the guitar or me or anywhere. I'm just going to play the song. So we've got the social distancing from YouTube to keep us safe. We don't need to go further. So. I've been in it for the money. I've been in it for the fun. I've been in it for too long. Wanna give it up. I've been crashing and burning, pushing too hard after thrills. I've been haunted by a hunger that the pleasure never kills. I've been swallowing fire. I've been swallowing flame, burning inside. You don't remember where it hit you. You just remember that it aches. Nobody ever knows themselves except by their mistakes. I've been swallowing fire. I've been swallowing flame, burning inside. I've been swallowing fire. I've been swallowing flame, burning inside. But somehow it keeps you running, out of control and into walls. Broken your off switch, there's no limit to the falls. Now the morning's run together. Now the clock runs out of time. And if I don't kill myself, I'm gonna die trying. So one of the most important things that happened with the Meat cassette was completely an accident. So Emp Records, which is a record company that's part of a class for Columbia College in Chicago, the art school. It's a year-long class, and they learn about the record industry, they sign a band, they learn about promotion, they release a single and promote it, and that's how the class, that's the class is all about, learning as you go with actually releasing a song. So, and there's a very specific process how they do it. You kind of, the acts apply, fill out the paperwork, and the class reviews it, and then they go through and they decide, and then they all go and see the different bands live, and then they all vote and decide. So they'd come down to the 3 finalists, and quite by coincidence, the Bad Examples were opening for one of the finalists in 1988-89, I think. This gal comes up to me after we finish our opening set. We're at Lounge Acts, opening for Pat McCurdy, a great Milwaukee-based singer-songwriter, originally in the band Yipes. So Pat was the headliner. So we finish our show, and this gal comes up and tries to explain all this about Amp Records to me in the 15 seconds while I'm putting away my guitar and my cord, and I'm like, what? You what? No, my amp, yes, you're right, amp. She's saying Amp Records. I'm saying my amp, I got to take my amp off stage. Hang on, right on. Oh, no. I'm glad you like, what, huh? And so finally she's like trying to, finally said, I've got cassettes. They're $5. She goes like, fine. She buys a cassette from me for $5 and leaves. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So she contacts me a couple days later and says, I remember I'm the gal that told you about Amp Records. And I'm like, vaguely, maybe I remember it. I pitched it to the class, and we'd like you to be our our band this year. I'm like, for what? So we didn't go through the process, but we ended up becoming the Amp Records release that year. Now, she very much, and the class wanted Not Dead Yet to be the single. Whatever. At that point, Meat was old news. We were working on Bad is Beautiful. And I, in my infinite wisdom, was very aware that the hit song of the new batch of stuff we were doing was Little Disasters. So here's the cover of the 12-inch single they did. So they wanted Not Dead Yet to be the single, right? I wanted Little Disasters to be the single. So what I did was I talked them into this cover where, see, it's the bad, either way, it's the Bad Examples or it's the Bad Examples. 2 of the guys are right side up no matter which way you look at it. And on the back, the lyrics are right side up one way, the other lyrics are right side up the other way. So it was my sneaky way it was a compromise to have, I let the kids have their way with Not Dead Yet, so we could get the real single on the single. Little Disasters. Little did I know, Little Disasters did not even make it onto That Is Beautiful. However, it made it onto the Columbia College single. And when we re-released Meat, the original, you can see the original 8 songs on Meat ended with Goodbye, which I'll do next. Oh, I have a good story about that. And then we'll go into Little Disasters. I kind of skipped ahead. So, I was Not Dead Yet. No. So Not Dead Yet ended up being the Columbia College single. And have to do that. I was going to let you play in the Rolling Stones. I don't know Jimmy Page, I never met Yoko Ono, standing with a strap. I'm rock and roll bastard son. Go out, get drunk, get laid, have fun. Don't got $1 million, don't drive a Cadillac. Give me half a chance, cause I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with New Orleans in my back. You better get a big gun, I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun. I'm not dead yet, but there's a murder in the alley. There's a sniper in a hall. Here's a girl at the bar wants to get me by the ball. Hangman is hanging if I autograph the noose. Lee Harvey Oswald's brothers on the loose. Mafia hitman with a bullet for my back. Someday he's gonna get me, but I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun. You better get a bigger gun. I'm not dead yet. Not dead yet. Not dead yet. I'm a mad dog fighting with the wall against my back. You better get a bigger gun, 'cause I am not dead yet. Woo! So, not dead yet it was for the single, I guess. Now, getting back to the original Meat album, I told you that I had those cassette tapes, and I wrote a little song to flesh it out. And something interesting that I haven't mentioned yet that struck me, I didn't think about this before I started today, but this particular guitar that I'm playing, that I don't generally play, this is my kind of my home, one of the guitars I play here at the house. I don't do it at the studio a lot, but this is a Yamaha guitar that I bought when I was in college. So this is my first acoustic guitar that I bought, which makes it coming up on 40 years old, and 35, something like that. But this is the guitar that I played. All the acoustic guitars on Meat are played actually on this exact guitar. So like on Reaching for Shadows, that thrummy, that's the way this guitar sounds, that shimmery sound. And Goodbye, that's just this guitar. So kind of appropriate that, quite by accident, no planning on that one. I wish I'd planned that one. It would have been made, I could like be all clever, but I just happened to be doing it. Whispered words I can't recall what she said when she meant goodbye. Memories from long ago, what she said when she meant goodbye. Where is the dream when a dream is gone? Where is the sun at night? Whispered words from long ago. So that was the original Meat album. Now the CD has 2 more songs that I'll share with you as well. One of the biggest influences that the Meat album had actually has to do with the way that it just kept selling. So again, I intended that first 50 copies, and that was going to be it. And then they sold so fast. I made another 50, and they sold. I made 100, and they sold. And the band kept building and growing, and people kept buying it and getting more copies. And somewhere around here or Waterdog, I'll have to find it. I thought it was here. A fan. We had a big. We were playing a show at Fitzgerald's in that first year, and we'd been making a big deal about the fact we were approaching 500 copies of Meat having been sold. And a fan actually made a cardboard cutout like they have gold records where it looks like it's made out of gold and it's framed. He made this little cardboard cassette tape of meat and brought it. And I thought it was on the wall. It's here somewhere. I bet the cats knocked it off on the floor. I'll find it and post it on a picture of it on my page. But we were very excited when the album actually went cardboard and sold 500 copies. But the thing that it taught me, and the big influence that Meat had, was I realized that if you make an album and people connect with it and love it, it's really it can have a life of its own. Once it's out there, it's out of your hands. And that's why when the Bad Examples and I, when Terry and Pickles and Tommy O'Brien and I set out to make Bad is Beautiful with Michael Freeman, at the heart of our goal was to learn how to make a record. What's the journey of making a record? How do you go through that process? Because we didn't want to find ourselves like a lot of bands do, where if they have a hit record and then they don't know how to recreate it, they don't know what the process is, and so then their follow-up record flops and the band never goes anywhere. Sadly, we never became Oasis or the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or U2 having to deal with that issue, but we made, one of the reasons why Bad is Beautiful is such a nuanced and rich album is because we were approaching it from that mindset, which was very much directly a result of Meat being as popular as it was. The other thing about Bad is Beautiful, then I'll talk about this next week when we do our Bad is Beautiful YouTube live here, is we did it without a record label. We did it on our own terms, on our own time, on our own dime. So, which back in the late 80s, early 90s was virtually impossible. Very, very, very few bands ever did that. So, well, here is the big hit, the smash single off of Bad is Beautiful that was so popular, it didn't go on Bad is Beautiful, but it went on the Columbia College single. And then we included it on our CD release of Meat, Little Disasters, the song that made us international pop superstars. Or not, but it's still a great song. So. He wants to take her out to a movie, but he's not sure if he wants to go. And he don't want to take it too quickly. He don't want to take it too slow. Yeah, she's the kind of girl he's always dreamed of. Oh, but this time it looks like it's real. And he knows she makes him feel happy. He don't know what he wants to feel. It's a little disaster. A little disaster. He wants everything to work out perfect, but she only wants to be with him. He buys her flowers that he never sends her, 'cause he's afraid she might misunderstand. And then he knows he might not deliver the love that he knows she'll demand. Yeah, and he's ready for the altar. Oh, but suddenly he's running away. And he knows he'll love her forever. He don't know if he wants to stay. It's a little disaster. A little disaster. He wants everything to work out perfect, but she only wants to be with him. He loves her, he can't understand why it should be such a struggle. He's happy, but it's not enough. Somehow he still ends up lonely. Lonely. Well, there's a train that leaves Saturday morning, so she seems like it came without warning, and all of his words are too late. Yeah, and he stammers and stares at the station, and his bags are as heavy as lead. And he wanted to tell her he loved her, but the train pulls away instead. It's a little disaster, a little disaster. He wants everything to work out perfect, but she only wants to be with him. Little disaster, a little disaster. It's a little disaster. He wants everything to work out perfect, but she only wants to be with him. Excellent. A comment just came up. Now, one of the limitations with YouTube is it's very difficult for me to comment back. But one of the comments that just came up, somebody mentioned that they liked that chord sequence. Something you can do if you're interested in my chords and my songs is if you go to the ralphcovert.com website, and if you go into the music tab and go down to Acoustic Army, within the Acoustic Army, there is a button you can hit that takes you to an archive of music, of words and chords, that has all the words and chords for all of my songs. So you can actually learn them and play along. And they're there for anybody who is interested. So if you go to ralphcovert.com, under Acoustic Army, and then go to the archive of words and chords, they're there for you. So the final song on the CD of Meet, the Bad Examples, is another song that we were convinced was going to be one of the big songs off of Bad is Beautiful. Crazy enough. The two songs we were most convinced as we were recording the record that were going to be the singles, neither of them made the album. And we were this song is Reinventing the Wheel. We were so positive that Reinventing the Wheel was going to be the critical song off the record, that after we'd finished the recording part of the process and we were looking for the studio to do the mix, the test song that we took to all these different studios and mixed was Reinventing the Wheel. So ironically, when we included it on the Meet the Bad Examples CD release in the mid-90s, when we finally caught up to putting this one out on CD, we had a bunch of mixes to go with because we'd mixed this song more times than any other song in the entire Bad is Beautiful album, and never made the record. It ended up kind of languishing. And so we, when we put Meet, 8 songs on a CD is pretty paltry. We added 2 more, got it up to at least 10, and that seemed like a reasonable, at least it was reasonable length for a regulation album versus being just, again, originally just governed by the length of those oddball, cheap cassettes that Michael Freeman had basically donated to me. So, Reinventing the Wheel, the last song on the Meet the Bad Examples album. All the time that we have lost, all that we have missed, yeah, we stole everything that we could steal, and I never thought it would come to this. Oh, reinventing the wheel. We're together, but we've been lonely. Every day we're drifting farther out to sea, but I still love you. Oh, together Yeah, but baby, we can both the time we have lost, love that we have missed. Yeah, we stole everything that we could steal, and I never thought it would come to this. Oh, reinventing the wheel, and the wheel goes round and round, and the clock goes on and on, and now it seems like we have lost our direction. Hoping now before we lose everything. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah, yeah. Oh, reinventing the wheel. So there you have it. Meet the Bad Examples album. A recording that was not intended to be an album in the first place. It was just supposed to be a club demo. When it was initially sold, it was just a condom with a cassette tape attached. And a bunch of the songs on it that were supposed to be the hits were on a different record, were never even hits, and yet they're still pretty fun songs. And I'm going to close with a song that kind of reminds me of that aspect of some of the tunes on this record. It's a song called Trying Too Hard to Be a Gentleman. And it's an unreleased, it's still, well, it's been, there was like an obscure release as for a charity thing, but it was not on any Bad Examples albums. And yet it goes back to the very early days. It was actually written on the same day that I wrote Reaching for Shadows. I wrote 2 songs that day. I wrote Reaching for Shadows, and I wrote Trying Too Hard to Be a Gentleman. And it's kind of like, I always think of the 2 songs like sisters. I mean, the one song got put on this record and gets played all the time. The other song is like the sister that never quite went to the prom. It's, and yet in a way they're kind of, I think, mirror images of the same relationship struggle that I was going through. The Reaching for Shadows, Trying Too Hard to Be a Gentleman. They're both tied into the same emotional center. So to me, that song kind of feels like a spiritual sister that deserves to be part of this discussion. So I will, Trying Too Hard to Be a Gentleman, a little honorary track for this little Meet the Bad Examples thing. We agreed we were wrong for each other. What the hell were we talking about? And it's no mystery, we had our problems. Was it you or was it me that wanted out? And I tried too hard to be a perfect gentleman. Did it too hard for me to let you go. Tried too hard to be a perfect gentleman. I walk too fast or run too slow. Now I'm lying here drunk on the carpet with my heart spilled all over my sleeve. And I can't understand why it's over. Neither one of us wanted to leave. Trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. Did it too hard for me to let you go. Trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. I walk too fast or run too slow. There's a secret on the tip of my tongue. I still feel ugly. Is that the reason I find it so hard to let you love me? Well, there's a letter that you wrote on the counter. I had it a week, haven't opened it up. You might say you love me, might say it's over. I don't know which answer scares me the most. Trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. Did it too hard for me to let you go. Trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. gentleman. I walk too fast and run too slow, and I'm trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. It ain't too hard for me to let you go. Trying too hard to be a perfect gentleman. I walk too fast or run too slow. Excellent. So meet the bad examples. I hope you enjoyed this little journey through the making and early life of that album. And I'm going to be back. This is YouTube Live tonight. I've been doing Facebook Live shows every night, same time, 8 p.m. Central. So I will see all of you, my friends, here tomorrow night. Of course, this is YouTube here, so those of you that are watching on YouTube that are not watching on April 19th, 2020, if you have a time machine, you can come back and watch the show tomorrow, which will be in your past. But otherwise, you've got this, and I'll be doing this again. Next Sunday night, we're going to have yet another album exploration, and we'll dive into probably Bad is Beautiful, or maybe we'll bridge into some of the stuff that led up to Bad is Beautiful. I'm not sure yet. I'm not planning that far ahead. I'm just grateful to have gotten to do this with you and to have made it through Meet the Bad Examples without any cataclysmic crashes or disasters. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. I don't remember how to turn this off. Last time I tried to do this, I spent like a bunch of time hitting buttons. I think I can do that again. But it's kind of funny to watch me stumble like this. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks so much. Oh, I found it. Okay, take care. Whispered words from long ago, what she said when she left. Goodbye.